everybody. Today we're talking about the ABRSM Grade 1 snare drum solo, Step and March by William Edwards. All right. Now, when I start a snare drum solo, the first thing I do is check out the time signature. All right. The time signature are the numbers at the beginning that tell us how many beats per measure we have and what kind of beats those are. So this says 2/4 right at the very beginning of your piece. The top note tells us how many beats there are per measure, 2. And the bottom note tells us what kind of notes those are. So if you think of it like a fraction, 2/4, a fourth is a quarter of something. So we have 2 quarter notes per measure. All right? The next thing I like to look at are instructions that the composer has given us that indicate what we should be feeling when we're playing the song, right? That's really important when we're performing, that we're feeling something. And he says right above there, in strict time, all right? So that's more of an instruction of we want everything very deliberate and in strict, even the word strict time. And the title of the piece is called Step and March. So this is a very rigid piece. We're going to think about being very deliberate and very intentional with the placement of all of our notes. And we want to get that into our psyche before we begin, all right? The next instruction that they've given you right next to in strict time is quarter note equals 96, which is brilliant. This is a great way for the composer to indicate about the time that you need to play. And you just enter that into your metronome, right? 96 beats per minute feels like this. 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1 and 2 and really strict in time. We're gonna think strict. Okay, very good. Once we've looked at the tempo and all the instructions, the next thing I like to do is go through all the dynamics, make sure that we are really exaggerating the dynamics, and make sure that we're really understanding what they need to do. Particularly on a snare drum, things can just sort of all sound middle and loud if we're not careful. So what we want to do is really set levels. We've talked about this on the Percussioner. There's a couple of videos that describe how I set up all my dynamics, and I learned that this is piano, and this is mezzo piano, and this is mezzo forte, and this is forte, and so on. So we really want to think about that when we play this piece, that we are being very exact about our dynamics. We begin with forte, which means strong. It's the Italian word for strong, not for loud. I'm going to remind you that infinitely, probably. We don't think in terms of loud and quiet. We think of terms in strong and soft, okay? So right from the very beginning, strong with an accent on the downbeats, da-da-da, da-da-da, okay? Then in measure 5, we are immediately piano, okay? We have a rest leading up to it, so we'll have plenty of time to get our sticks set really low, and we'll be playing from a very low height for the piano. And then we're back to forte, another boom, boom, really quite exciting in measures 7 and 8. And then we're back to mezzo forte. And mezzo forte is sort of the middle of the road. It's the vanilla of dynamics. It's just that dynamic that is comfortable to listen to and comfortable to play, okay? Finally, at the end of that line, measure 12, we have a subito piano, again, super soft. So we're going to get our sticks really low. We're dropping them from a really low height here. And we have those accents. Again, I think of accents simply being one dynamic level louder than the dynamic that's given. So I don't want to think that is too much accent. All I think about is just one dynamic level louder. So if this is piano, then mezzo piano is here, then my accents will be okay, just one dynamic level louder. We just lift it a little bit and drop it from a little bit higher height. After those little accents, we have those 2 lines leading up to forte, a crescendo. We're going to gradually get louder. So we're going to think about each note being just a little bit higher off the drum than the previous. 1, 2, 1 E and a 2. And now we're forte with an accent. Okay? Finally, 19, mezzo piano. Okay, we talked about mezzo piano being our accents there. So that's in between piano and mezzo forte. So that's quite a tricky little thing to make sure that this is piano and that's mezzo piano, mezzo forte, forte. All right, practice doing that. Practice just playing forte, mezzo forte, 3, mezzo piano, 2, 3, 4, and piano, 2, 3, and going beyond, pianissimo, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Fantastic. We're going to finish it with a big crescendo right at the end, just one little bar, da, 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 rest, blop, and a nice little pam. We're done right at the end, and it's a flam. We've talked about flams in a lot of the other ones. If you don't know about a flam, go check it out in the Rudiment series on the Percussioner. It's number 20, and basically, as you can see, there's a teeny tiny note before the big note, and that is called a grace note, and we're just going to drop a little tiny grace note at the same time we drop the main note so that we make 2 different sounds. But this is still the main note, and that should land on the beat. This little flam should come just before the beat. Thinking about this being the beat, now we'll add the flam, without the flam, with the flam, just dropping that note. Okay. Now we're just about ready for a play along, but I wanted to point out 2 specific rhythms in this step and march that I think are really important. We're going to see them all the time in music, and if you've done the rhythm series on the Percussioner, then you know these very well. The very first one comes in the first measure, where we play 2 16th notes followed by an 8th note, and I always address 16th notes as 1 E and a. So in this case, you'd have 1 E and 2 E and, or 1 E and 2 E and, 1 E and 2 E and. The next rhythm I want to point out is at the very end of that, the end of that first line. So that is measure 5. Now we have the 8th note at the beginning, and then it followed by 2 16th notes. So again, if we look at 1 E and a, then we're actually playing 1 and a 2 and a. And here we are, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1. Okay? Very careful to be very strict about those in strict time, as Mr. Edwards points out, and I think we'll be okay. Now, we're going to have a little play along. I'm going to count you in. We're going to go a little bit slower, just so that we really feel the time and we really lock everything in. And we're going to pay careful attention to where we play on the drum. We talk about this with the glockenspiel. We talk about this with the timpani. It's just as important on the snare drum. We want to try to stay in the same area. A lot of times I see people running way out here, playing way in here. I think what we want to do right now, let's just aim for the same spot, sort of like a timpani, I guess, if you were looking at the pizza slice, just off center. And we want to try to keep our sticks in roughly the same area for now. All right? Okay, this is going to be at quarter note equals 80. I'm going to count along with you. I encourage you to count along, and I'll probably talk about some instructions as we go along as well. Let's just see how it goes. This is quarter note equals 80, okay, for step and march. Really strict. Let's get that into our mind first. 1, 2, 1 and 2 and strict time, go, and 1 E and 2 E and 1 and 2, 1 E and a 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1, 2, rest, forte 1, rest, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, 1 and 2 and 1, piano, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, crescendo 2, 1 E and a 2, 1 E and 2 E and 1 and 2, 1 E and 2 E and 1 and 2 and rest, 2, rest and 2, and 1, and 2, and a 1, 2. Fantastic. I hope you're having fun. As always, if you've got any questions, please send me an email and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. We'll have another play along just after this, and I'll count you in and you can play at the performance tempo, and I won't talk through that one. Talk to you later. See ya. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, play.